Howdy everyone, the Yacht Jaw Warrior is back, and now I'm going to make good on a promise I made a few videos ago and talk about Islam, the most venomous, hateful religion the world has ever seen. I figured now was as good a time as any, considering the horrendous shooting that took place in Orlando, and how this event is actually prompting quite a few people to talk about the subject more and more. So it's time I shared my perspective. Islam is pure evil. The atrocities in the Quran make the worst parts of the Bible look like a goddamn Hallmark commercial. From Muhammad decapitating hundreds of Jewish men and enslaving their wives and daughters to be his concubines, to the Quran requiring its followers to kill or tax non-believers, to the men of Islam being required to physically assault their wives in certain contexts, there is pretty much no defending this religion. Anyone who has studied its history and the text itself should be able to come to this realization, yet there are those who still defend it, both ignorant and scholarly. But I'm going to reply to somebody belonging to the former because this particular scumbag has gone pretty much unnoticed by me until now. Take it away, Steve.
Yesterday I posted this really angry and kind of hopeless sounding Facebook status in response to the shooting at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, and my thinking on the topic since then.
My God, Steve Shives actually thinks? I didn't get that memo.
This is just sort of where I've landed at the moment and how I feel about what happened in Orlando, which was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. 50 people dead, 53 people wounded. And this, I think, is a good example. The evolution of my thoughts and feelings on this in the last day is a good example of the importance of listening to people who are different from you.
So you spent the entire day before making this video doing little else but thinking, and the great epiphany, the great crucible you end up having is that it's valuable to listen to different people and accept their points of view. Jesus Christ, Steve. I heard people say you were an idiot, but to actually see it for myself, you have eclipsed my expectations.
So that was my first response. That was my first reaction, to just go on another anti-gun rant. And then I saw people, you know, realizing that the shooter was Muslim, and apparently the dipshit called 911 right before he started shooting and pledged allegiance to ISIS. And so now we have all the Islamophobes coming out of the woodwork saying this is what Islam does, this is what religion does. And my response to that was, well, I have to speak out against that. I have to, you know, push back against this effort to co-opt this tragedy and make it about, you know, driving more suspicion toward Muslims and more hate toward Muslims and more animus toward Islam, and because God knows we don't have enough suspicion and criticism and you know, intolerance toward Islam.
No, we really don't. If we did, these kinds of attacks by Muslim people would be a little less frequent, wouldn't they? The problem is that PC crybabies like yourself keep excusing the actions of people like this by completely ignoring what they do, and instead you patronize us with obvious moral speeches about how wrong it is to lump all Muslims in the same category as the extremists who commit these crimes. Every fucking time you people do this, you are creating the environment that makes all these Muslim scumbags feel like they can actually get away with this shit. And the worst part is they do. They do, and you don't say a goddamn thing about it because you're a spineless cocksucker who's too full of white guilt to actually address the situation for what it is. So you rely on your pathetic defense mechanism that tells you to just shit on American white people like you've done 1,000 times before.
That's clearly what allowed this to happen, right? We're just way too pro-Muslim in the United States.
Well, with the far-left politicians pathetically defending Islam every time this type of shit happens, I'd say that's pretty much on the money.
Paying attention to my gay friends and my trans friends, my queer friends.
Do you know the definition of redundancy, Steve?
I realized that it would be wrong of me to make this event about either guns. And honestly, at this point in America, I can't make it about guns. I can't make it about Islam, or even primarily about defending Muslims from the hate that they're receiving, even though that is absolutely awful and unconscionable, and I stand against that completely.
Except that's kind of what you're doing here, isn't it, Steve?
And I am completely opposed to anyone using this event to try and turn even more angry eyes on Muslims in this country or anywhere else.
Would you please get to the point?
An opportunity, and I have been convinced of this and sort of shown this by listening to my gay and my trans and my non-binary and just my friends who identify with the groups that were targeted. I've realized that this has to be about that.
You guys have no clue how much of this video I had to edit out. There's more filler in this guy's videos than there is in most animes.
People like me, people who are privileged, who live in a culture where cis hetero straight people are viewed as the norm and as the default and have had everything sort of structured around us.
So in your eyes, making a post-Orlando video about hatred of Islam or gun control would be in poor taste, but using the incident as a platform to peddle your tired and unsubstantiated views on structural privilege and overwhelming cultural preference to hetero white men is just fine.
We don't realize how homophobic and biphobic and transphobic and just queerphobic in general our culture still is. We pat ourselves on the back for legalizing same-sex marriage and for being so progressive and for making such amazing progress in such a short time. You know, we got rid of the ban on gays in the military, and we legalized same-sex marriage. We're really making progress, and we are. And I don't mean to denigrate that progress, but God damn it, we have to realize how hostile and vicious this culture still is.
Steve, have you already fucking forgotten who the perpetrator of this atrocity was? It wasn't your classical white menace who lived and breathed American values. It was a fucking Muslim guy whose parents were Afghan immigrants with supposed Taliban connections, who abused his wife frequently and clearly expressed how much he cared about his faith. A faith that preaches that women deserve to be beaten if they transgress against men, and that gays and LGBT people are abominations who need to be destroyed. Not to mention he pledged allegiance to ISIS before he proceeded to slaughter nearly an entire nightclub. This man was not motivated by fictitious Western standards of misogyny and intolerance. He was motivated by very real Muslim standards of misogyny and intolerance.
People and queer people of all stripes. I mean, we can't be blind to that. For someone to invade a space made by and for LGBTQ folks, where they can go and be themselves and be with each other and escape from the social pressures and the discrimination and the marginalization that they feel on a daily basis, for someone to invade that sanctuary and commit an atrocity like this, that's unthinkable. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what that must...
Just how many more times do you intend to repeat yourself?
That's what I want to say with this video, for whatever that's worth. If you're watching this and we know each other personally, and you are a gay person or a trans person, a bisexual person, whatever you are, whatever color of the rainbow applies to you, and you feel hurt by this, you feel scared or endangered or violated or just sad and upset, I love you, and I'm here for you, and I want to help you. I want to stand up for you. I want to help make this a world where these sorts of things don't happen.
You know, Steve, this is kind of why I almost feel bad responding to one of your videos. I honestly don't think you're a bad guy at heart, but the fact remains you've been conditioned to accept hateful and fallacious SJW propaganda as fact, and you have yet to openly reject it and view it as such. I think I'm going to end the video here because he then proceeds to go into a lot of touchy-feely territory, talking about how if more people love each other, the world would be a better place to live. And if you get that reference, hats off to you. Or biomask in my case. Yeah, but I'm not going to rip apart that section of the video because he actually seems quite sincere in his compassion for the people who are victimized in this event. Which again depresses me because all it does is make me think how awesome of a guy he would be if he had the intellect and forethought to break away from his SJW shackles and become an actual force for good. The next few videos will be specifically Islam-based, so definitely look forward to that. Hunt well, my young human viewers.